So to the French papers, they're focusing a lot on the Cahuzac affair today, just what the government knew. They've been facing a grilling, haven't they, the government?
That's right. It's on the front page of Le Figaro today that points out these 3 ministers were grilled over the Cahuzac affair. So who are they? Well, Justice Minister Christiane Taubira, Interior Minister Manuel Valls, and Economy Minister Pierre Moscovici. And Le Figaro points out that, well, they all 3 appeared before this parliamentary commission that's investigating the affair. Basically, what this commission wants to find out is how could the government not know that the former budget minister, Jérôme Cahuzac, who was in charge of tracking down tax evaders, well, he himself had this secret bank account in Switzerland. And now, how could the government not know this? Well, all 3 of them said the government did not know anything about this, and they defend the way that the government managed the whole affair, said that there was no dysfunction in the way things played out. But Le Figaro is actually quite disappointed in the hearing and says that it wasn't very useful in the end because it didn't really shed any light on anything interesting. And even though these 3 ministers did speak under oath, Le Figaro says that you can't help but doubt their lack of knowledge in this whole affair. But that's something that's very hard to prove, according to Le Figaro.
And as for Cahuzac himself, he's turning to rather an unlikely mentor for guidance, isn't he?
That's right. This was very surprising, actually. It's the former IMF chief, Dominique Strauss-Kahn. This is an article in Le Monde. Now, he knows a thing or two about falling from grace. And Le Monde points out that both Dominique Strauss-Kahn and Jérôme Cahuzac, well, they're actually quite similar because their careers came down crashing at the very peak. And now they're both seen as being kind of the black sheep of the Socialist Party. So according to this article in Le Monde, Jérôme Cahuzac has turned to Dominique Strauss-Kahn for some guidance, even though Cahuzac refused to confirm that. Dominique Strauss-Kahn is turning into his political detox guide. He's playing a key role in helping him see that it's, his time in politics is over, but there is a life after politics. And in fact, Le Monde says that maybe this is a career option for Dominique Strauss-Kahn. He could become somewhat of a life coach for disgraced politicians.
It's an interesting thought, isn't it? Now, French papers, they're also focusing on President Thein Sein's visit to Paris today. It's the first time the Burmese head of state will be received at the Élysée Palace, isn't it?
That's right, and Le Figaro is calling him the Burmese Gorbachev and says that he's continuing his PR operation across Europe. They take a closer look at just how he's gone from being this iron-fisted leader to opening up the country and carrying out some democratic reform. But Le Figaro really does focus on the whole economic aspect and points out that Burma is seen as being quite an El Dorado with a lot of possible investment that France wants to get into. And that's another thing that L'Humanité, the communist newspaper, is focusing on as well. They're more critical about this red carpet that France is laying out for the Burmese president. Says that, this is all about investment, but we shouldn't forget that Burma's track record isn't so great when it comes to human rights, especially when you can think about the Muslim Rohingya minority. And on top of that, the army still has a very important role in the country.
And Egypt also still, of course, in the French newspapers as well. You picked out something from left-leaning Libération, haven't you?
That's right. It's on the front page, and they're saying, let's call this what it is, a spade a spade. They take a look at this coup d'etat, this military coup d'etat, and say that, well, a lot of people are saying this was a coup d'etat for the people, but that's not how democracy works, according to Libération, and says that you have to be naive to believe that the army, which is just run by a small group of officers that's concerned with protecting their own interests, well, you'd have to be naive to think that they'd be the one that would be trying to protect the democracy there. And actually, Libération is quite critical of the West's silence on what they call actually a complicit silence on the fact that this is a coup d'etat, and says that all this is doing is actually bolstering support for the Muslim Brotherhood, which in the end lost support because of its mismanagement and totalitarianism.
Okay, Flo, thank you very much. That's Florence VILLEMINOT with the French newspapers here on France 24. That's all the news and the papers and the business for now here on France 24. Of course, we've got another bulletin coming up for you very, very shortly, so do stay tuned for that if you possibly can. Back in a few minutes.